go to the phones. Calling from a 240 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, is that you?
Yes. Is this you?
It is. It is Vito from Maryland.
Vito from Maryland. What's on your mind?
So one quick thing before I pose my question is I was seeing in some of the older YouTube videos, there was something I guess you guys were considering doing for a while, and then you dropped it, this thing called My Problems with Sam Seder. Did you guys give up on that? Or
That may have been a bit of a lark, but if you have a problem with me, we can revise it. We can restart it. So what is your problem?
No, I just thought it was really funny about, I don't know, you said something that you like cheap cheese. But anyway, I wanted to ask you guys, because this anonymous op-ed thing seems to strike me kind of differently than a lot of the talking points I've heard. The typical going back and forth whether they think this person is, like a patriot or whether he's a coward. And I read this thing, and to me, I mean, here's this guy, and basically what he's saying is, yeah, our president's a lunatic, and we have to sort of like pretend we didn't hear him when he told us to assassinate a foreign leader, or we take crap off his desk so we can't see it. Oh, but don't worry, because we've been able to get all kinds of goodies in the meantime, like tax cuts and increase in military industrial complex and deregulation and by the way, we're going to keep getting these goodies. We thought about the 25th Amendment, but then we thought, we can get all this stuff for our rich corporate friends. We're going to, by the way, keep doing that until this is all over. I mean, I just thought it was from a corruption angle. To me, I don't think this guy comes across as anything but self-serving and,
listen, I totally agree. I will go even further. I'll say there's a couple of things that strike me, and thank you for bringing this up. And you should call back and tell us about the Maryland governor race when we have more time. But I want to discuss this. But thank you for raising it, because this we're talking about, and flash this up on the screen, the headline: I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. I work for the president, but like-minded colleagues and I have vowed to thwart parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. Okay, the biggest problem with this, it seems to me, is this is wholly undemocratic. Let's just start with that. This guy's basically saying we're engaged in a coup. Okay? Because we decide which things that we're going to pursue and which we're not. And even at one point, he goes on, look, many senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. I would know. I am one of them. We want the administration to succeed and think that many of its policies have already made America safer and more prosperous. But we believe our first duty is to this country, and the president continues to act in a manner that is detrimental to the health of our republic. First of all, who are they to decide what is detrimental to the health of our republic? Because I got news for you. The deregulation that you talk about, the tax cuts, etc., I think that is detrimental to the health of our republic. Trump appointees have vowed to do what we can to preserve our democratic institutions while thwarting Trump's more misguided impulses until he's out of office. Excuse me? This is fundamentally anti-democratic. The root of the problem is the president's amorality. What? Anyone who works with him knows he's not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision-making. There's no constitutional provision that the president should be moored to first principles. Although he was elected as a Republican, the president shows little affinity for ideals long espoused by conservatives. So what? So what? Who are you? An unelected whoever you are.
That's why he was elected as a Republican.
Right.
They're making me want Trump to find out who this person is and fire them.
He goes on to say free minds, free markets, and free people. What the F?
You gotta
At
get
best,
fired.
he's invoked these ideals in scripted settings. At worst, he's attacked them outright. In addition to his mass marketing of the notion that the press is, quote, the enemy of the people, President Trump's impulses are generally, you ready for this? Anti-trade and anti-democratic. First of all, how the F is anti-trade, anti-democratic? Maybe bad policy. But how is attacking the press as an enemy of the people and anti-democratic impulses, like let's say you're an unelected person who is thwarting the agenda of the president, one of which is maybe you don't like his tariff proposals? Are you effing serious? This person is should be drummed out of office.
Yep.
The erratic behavior would be more concerning if it wasn't for unsung heroes in and around the White House. Presumably, this writer is one of them. Some of his aides have been cast as villains by the media, but in private, they have gone to great lengths to keep bad decisions contained to the West Wing, though they are clearly not always successful. The result is a two-track presidency. You know who I think wrote this? I mean, some people think it's Dan Coates.
That's not a bad pick.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Javanka.
Yep. Yep.
This is written by somebody who, in fact, I would say it's written by a committee, right? Because they want exactly, Spartacus.
I am Javanka.
They want to, A, provide themselves some cover as an individual at a later date. They are putting out the first edition of history to justify the actions of people who supported Donald Trump. And they are trying to distance the Republican Party and the conservative movement now that they've gotten everything that they feel they can get. They are trying to distance that movement, which created Donald Trump and Trumpism. And they want to step back from it.
My only thought on that is I mean, I now that you say committee, I think you're right, and I'm sure they would be part of that committee. I think the only reason I wouldn't think it would be Jared and Ivanka is I think they're concerned about pretending to be anything other than venile, corrupt people is actually more on the Upper East Side set, so you wouldn't see the same kind of like Republicanism talking points.
That's why I think it's a committee.
I think you're right.
That's why it's a committee. We need... Listen, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to give us each a pass. And if we need to do it, we'll also give the Republican Party a pass.
Yeah,
okay?
I think that's right.
He is going to be so unique and so not of us that all we are great American patriots for playing along.
Yeah,
This is
it's a committee. I think you're
Is
totally
it a
right.
committee that wants to make Pence look like it's Pence's fault?
Well, I think there's another
This is
point.
not helpful to
Now,
Pence.
in the end, it's written, we may no longer have Senator McCain, but we will always have his example, a lodestar for restoring honor to public life in our national dialogue. Why would they use the word lodestar? My guess is that this committee wanted to signify that Pence is part of the committee. Why lodestar? I don't know. Do people use that word much?
I don't. I've heard lodestone.
Have you heard? Where have
No.
I heard the word lodestar before?
Not really.
Narcs.
Tom
That's going to
Clancy.
continue to be a lodestar.
Jack's lodestar as our lodestar.
Lodestar.
It really was the lodestar.
There you go. Now,
Really like that word.
there's also
Mike.
some people who have pointed out the use of to be clear, I think, or whatever it was, or you know, there were some other things that like Nikki Haley isms are in this. Oh, don't get me wrong. That's what it is.
Yeah, that one sticks out to me.
That's
weird way
a
to-
Nikki Haley ism. Don't get me wrong.
She won't forgive me for not dating her anymore. Just because Nikki and I aren't sleeping together anymore doesn't mean she should do this.
I think this is a document that is done by committee so that they can all disavow it and they can all embrace it when the time is right. This is BS. This is the problem with the Republican never-Trumpers. It's the problem with John McCain and his fire hose that has no water. It's the problem with Jeff Flake riding in with a 10-gallon hat and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I left my guns back at home. There's a new sheriff in town. It's just I don't quite have my weapons. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Tell me when the shooting's over." And all of these people who are basically out understand to maintain the brand of the Republican Party now that they have gotten what they need and they're starting to see perhaps the time to be aligned with Donald Trump is coming to an end. That doesn't mean that we're going to jettison him, because that's not necessarily in our best interests, but we can still keep him at arm's length. That's what's going on here.
And a small point, just to add to that, if we were to stipulate that, whatever, there is some people who, according to their own sort of warped logic, are there and they're protecting us from even worse outcomes. And of course, they work for Trump. They're far-right Republicans, so they support all these catastrophic tax and military initiatives. You would, if it was sincere in terms of protecting the country from Trump, and we stipulated all of it, you would never write this column, ever. Because you would never risk getting, like, if the overriding commitment was we got to be there to protect this, you wouldn't risk exposing yourself, and you wouldn't go near doing this melodramatic, deep throat public
The whole
display.
argument is like, we have been lying in wait as a sleeper cell to protect the country. And the missing predicate here is, and the reason why we're telling you this now is...
Right. Exactly.
So
because
that Donald Trump will find out our plan and know about it, and be ready.
I am looking forward to
tuck
getting
him.
fired and becoming a CNN contributor, because it's time to hit the eject button.
I have looked at the publishing schedule, and if we're going to have this out by the spring of 2019, I need to get on this nowski.
There's the real story, or I guess another story besides who did this, is why the New York Times allowed this person to do it and what their plan is. Are we going to know eventually what the story is behind this? Because this is a pretty out there thing to happen in democracy.
Well, it's an op-ed, from their perspective. That's why that's the way they get away with it.
Well, you know who's editing the op-eds now, among other people, our girl Barry Weiss.
Oh, is she an editor, an op-ed
Yes.
editor? Oh, all right.
I look forward to anonymous White House official Jordan Peterson and Barry Weiss, along with David Frum, on restoring the dialogue at the Aspen Festival next year.
And if you're a liberal and you think this is good, get real.
Anybody. I mean, I think, fortunately, there's been a decent amount of skepticism about all of this. And so that's the only upside. Now, with this op-ed, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration, which was completely self-serving, completely ran contrary to the premise of the piece, which is we're saving America. Because if you were really concerned about saving America, the last thing you would do is advertise we're saving America by undercutting the president, because then you would limit your ability to undercut the president. So Donald Trump, what better thing to do? He gets on the blower and he says, bring me all the fattest and oldest law enforcement personnel you can find, and let me do a speech in the round with them in the White House. Here it is, yesterday afternoon.
Someday when I'm not president, which hopefully will be in about 6.5 years from now, the New York Times and CNN and all of these phony media outlets will be out of business, folks. They'll be out of business because there'll be nothing to write, and there'll be nothing.
Who did the camera work? Like, what the hell is going on here? Never seen anything like this before. It's bizarre.
Oh my God! It's the camera guy who wrote the column.
Here we go.
Can you guys take your guns out?
To write, and there'll be nothing of interest. So nobody has done what this administration has done, and I agree, it's different from an agenda, which is much different than ours, and it's certainly not your agenda, that I can tell you. Thank you. It's about open borders. It's about letting people flee into our country. It's about a disaster and crime for our country. So they don't like Donald Trump, and I don't like them because they're very dishonest people. Remember this also about the New York Times. When I won, they were forced to apologize to their subscribers. They wrote a letter of apology. It was the first time anybody's ever done it because they covered the election incorrectly. So if the failing New York Times has an anonymous editorial, can you believe it? Anonymous, meaning gutless, a gutless editorial. We're doing a great job. The poll numbers are through the roof. Our poll numbers are great. And guess what? Nobody is going to come close to beating me in 2020 because of what we've done. We've done more than anybody ever thought possible in, it's not even 2 years. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Excuse me. Do we have U.S. military personnel who are like, it seems a little bit awkward. It just seems a little bit awkward to have all these guys here. I don't know. I don't know how appropriate that is.
I think that seal has been broken a few times in this administration.
Yeah.